Good afternoon, Danvers. Welcome to the topics of the town. I am Mark Zuberek reporting for a special report that I wanted to get across today because of the activities that are happening in regard to our budget and our warrant articles that are being presented to the town by our elected town Board of Selectmen. So, welcome again. I appreciate you being here. We are doing a presentation today for the town of Danvers, and it's for the spending plan for 2024 to 2025. This basically tells me that we're into fiscal year 2025. I'm here today, but I want to make sure that the agenda and opinions are solely by the topics of the town host. And we do not have any commentators today, but we will get comments back from our audience, I'm sure. Our leaders would like us to believe that everything we need to know is on the town website. Well, you only find what they want you to know. I have selected a interesting quote today from Vincent van Gogh. The quote sort of wraps up everything that's going on in regards to our town budget and our town warrant articles, because what it says is that great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. So, Ben, if we can get that quote up, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Great things are not done by impulse. Just think about that. But by a series of small things brought together. Well, what I'd like to get to is that post-impressionist painter Van Gogh said you can't create something magnificent on a whim. Great achievements are usually the result of working one step at a time. These references I picked for the upcoming town elections, and that's what we have coming up for our picking of the small things that happen. We are going to be involved in electing our leaders, our representatives that are supposed to represent our views and not be there for personal gain, but for representation of the 27,000 residents in the town of Danvers. So, news brief, topic number 1, news briefs currently affecting our residents. Results from the special budget and all-day management review on March 16th should be in the back of our mind, because that really sets the tone of how our management and our elected officials are going to spend our tax money. And the phrase that I like to reinforce is our tax money. They are spending the tax money that you and I contribute to the betterment of this town. Now we have the entire spending plan, including the warrant articles, funded by free cash, savings from last year's over budgeting. Our warrant articles are, I believe, 34, I think it's even more than 34, are in a presentation 43, I'm sorry, 43 articles that will be discussed, and some have already been discussed, and I'll get to that in a moment. Town Charter Review was the primary one that I was interested in because that has been talked about for over 3-4 years. And I've made a pitch to get the town charter reviewed because we need to update our form of government, and our form of government is based on the Constitution, which is the town charter. And now they have incorporated a new piece of it, but it's a duplication. Town charter is really the Town Manager Act. Town Manager Act is our Constitution. And that's one of the issues that I've had for the last 30 years, is that the town charter is a form of government that's very strong on the town manager. He wields a lot of authority in this town because we delegate that to him by our charter. So we'll see what the Town Charter Review Committee will do. But what I wanted to do is, one of the things, the biggest items recently has been the implementation of citizens' petitions that are being contemplated. And one of the citizens' petitions, there were several last night that we went through, and one of the key elements of the warrant articles, which are in addition and above the town budget, which currently town budget is let me just get this straight off the press here. The town will spend $144,252,074 in about 10 minutes at the town meeting. That has been a budget that was prepared to support all the functions of our town government. And just to give you a little bit of a flavor of where this money is coming from, is the key item on here is property tax. Property tax in this town that makes up the largest portion of the town budget of $144 million. And let me just double check something here, because I don't trust these numbers at all, because they have been talked about, but nothing is firmed up yet. And what I'm going to do, yeah, it's $144 million. That is last year, the budget, in 2022, the budget was $129 million. 2023, $139 million. 2024, which is this fiscal year, which ends on June 30th of 2024, was $138,684,000. But this year, it is going to end up at $144,252,074. That is the expected revenue. And let me just give you an idea of what our expected revenue comes from, excuse me, and how it's going to be allocated. This is the summary of the budget, and it is very well defined, and what I wanted to do is property tax revenue is going to be $95,700,530. That is the maximum levy capacity that is allowed by law, by the law of 2.5% increase, that the town can collect from us as residents. $95 million. The state aid, which is the cherry sheets and other distributions, is $13,769,000. Local receipts. These are the taxes that we pay locally for such items as motor vehicles, other excise taxes, hotel motel tax, in lieu of taxes, and this is an item that we talked about last night, in lieu of taxes, often charges for services, other charges for services, fees, departmental, licenses and permits, and there's a whole list of items that add up to $32 million. Sorry, let me step back. Add up to $15,785,000. The next item is other available funds, which in this case is $2.3 million. So what it adds, a subtotal for the receipts are $127 million. Enterprise funds. Now, these are funds for water and sewer, electric, and I believe there are others, but those are the key ones, are $16,753,000. Total revenue is $144 million. That money will be spent, like I said, in 10 minutes by the town meeting, because our town meeting is so organized and orchestrated that the reviews of the budget and the questions that are supposed to be asked by the town meeting members during a budget review hearing are done by during the Board of Selectmen hearing for the budget, and then they're again heard by the Finance Committee, who is a appointed committee by the town moderator, and it's made up of 9 members, supposed to be 9. There's usually either 7 or 9 members present, and those are the individuals that review and question the validity of the amounts to be spent on certain departments, certain functions, certain contracts. So, the biggest contributor to the spending of our town is the education department. Education in this town is costing us from 2 sources of funds. One is the $51,990,348, let's call it $52 million that they're asking for this year. And that is the amount that's controlled by the school committee. The one thing that everybody forgets is that there are supporting documents or supporting costs that are included in the general government of this town, approximately, and they're quoted at the end of the budget report. Last year, I think there were $22 million. So if you add 52 million plus 20, let's say, so it's $72 million out of the 144, which is more than 50%, is spent on education. That $20 million includes the cost of the buildings, the grounds, the maintenance of the facilities, and other costs that are distributed across the whole town, but they're related to the school department. So, general government spends roughly $35 million or $36 million. Retirement is another $10 million expense. Unappropriated charges, and this one I've questioned all the time, but it's items that are not directly appropriated for a department. They're spread. General government debt, we have a debt payment of $14,765,000. We have a capital outlay, all departments. That one is pretty reasonable, and it's been steady, about $750,000. The Essex Tech warrant article. Now, this is a constant draw on our education costs because Essex Tech is a component of our Danvers education department. And that has been, or it's in the range of $4.3 million. Now, those are costs that we incur to send our students I think it's like 260 some students last year. I'm going to talk about last year. 262 students, and they're being educated with these funds. And really, in reality, the cost of education in this town is the $52 million that I spoke about earlier, $22 million from the general government support of buildings and facilities, and $4.3 million for Essex Tech. So we're talking about 70 some million dollars that are spent directly on education. This has been a ratio that's been in existence at 25 years, 30 years ago, and it's always been above 50%. However, that ratio cannot successfully be handled with our tax revenue. So, we have a total of expenditures that are $127 million. Enterprise funds are direct transfer. They're supported on their own. $16.75 million is being spent by the enterprise funds, which is self-supporting water and sewer and electric. So luckily we do have a great electric department who supplies wholesale power to us directly, and we have water source that we monitor and have a reservoir in Middleton. And that's another one. Middleton is paid a pilot program because our reservoir is in Middleton. So total expenditures come out to be $144,252,000, which is equal to the revenue that we receive. That number has been in existence for 1 year. Last year, it was $138 million. The year before, $131 million. And the year before that, $122 million. So our expenditures are getting to be higher than the actuals that we receive. Now, when the budget is prepared, and I was involved in budget preparations in the past, the budgets are always fat, because the concept is that we can only recoup from our taxpayers a levy capacity of 2.5% over and above last year's assessed value. So, to maximize the receipt of taxes, the budget is basically formulated to make sure that we collect the $95.7 million that has been identified this year. Last year, the misnomer of leftover cash, they call it free cash, was $12.2 million. Now, I'll give the town management credit, is that 3.5, I believe, was basically from a account for backfilling and leveling the, and I call it the dump, but it's the landfill, in preparation for a future solar panel farm that would be located on top of the piles of trash that have been buried and capped. And those panels are supposedly going to generate between 3 and 5 megawatts of power. Now, that's still to be seen. The expected return in power is getting smaller and smaller every year, because the money that's being collected for dumping the soil at the top of the landfill to fill the voids, to level it off, are being collected and deposited in our treasury, in the general treasury of the town. And we'll get to that. There's an article that's being proposed to identify that and provide the selection of the funds and where those funds are going to be going. But right now, I have been working on another story, which was to identify the process and the end product of the landfill solar panel array that is going to be built on top of the I use the word dump. That's where it's at. I'm interested in that because my whole life has been spent in power generation and developing and building and maintaining nuclear power plants and other facilities that generate power. But I have presented a short increment of information that I was able to gather with the DPW director, David Lane, and his members of his staff. That was a very good presentation. However, as an engineer, personally, I don't understand why are we filling in these voids except for the fact to generate revenue. And I have stated that on my documentary in regard to the landfill leveling and dumping of soils, because the soils that are being deposited on top of the landfill are semi-contaminated. They're not contaminated to the level where they have to be shipped out of state, but they are permitted by the EPA and the State Department of environmental studies have permitted the town to do this. And I have asked the question directly. This is a revenue generating project, and that was funded by a loan of $4.5 million to establish a routine for the dumping of the soils and monitoring that soil deposit for contaminants, and they have rejected some. I have I've talked to our engineering department. They have rejected some, and they would not even accept some of it. But that $4.5 million that was is an investment to monitor and administer this program supposedly generated $6.1 million of revenue, which is a good return on an investment of $4.5 million. But you have to understand that that $4.5 million is tax revenue that was loaned for this project. And now it is being repaid on a debt service schedule. And there's some items in the warrant article that we did not get to last night, but there's an attempt to use some of that free cash, which was generated, according to what the books say, for $3.5 million was excess revenue that was received, and they want to use that to pay off the $4.5 million loan. But they're going for another $1.75 million loan to expand the program. The program is going to end up costing us $6.1 million. And the investment will generate probably $6 million total in the end of the calculation for what the costs were received for the investment that was invested into the project. So that's a good thing in a way. I believe that's one of the items that increased the free cash. And free cash is a misnomer. It's excess budgets that have been collected and retained from the budget calculation of last year. So this year, I am hoping, I'm predicting that this $144 million that's in the budget will probably generate between $6 and $8 million of free cash, because they just cannot spend it all in one place at the same time. So the budget is fat, and the taxpayers are on the hook for the maximum that can be collected by law from our tax revenues. And as a matter of tax collections, we just received our next quarterly statement or bill for our taxes. So I just wanted to get that explanation out, because I have also included in this calculation for this coming year is the $200 per quarter, $200 per year allowance for the trash tax or trash fee, so-called. So the trash fee itself is, or could have been, funded from the excess revenue that we have captured in our budget calculations. But to be able to collect any additional tax revenue from the residents, the taxpayers in this town, they had to create, and the law in this state has allowed this to be created as a fee. I call it a tax, they call it a fee, that is related to trash collection and disposal. That is done by our lovely legislators that we have in this town, because this is the only means that's available to collect over and above the 2.5 criteria that we have been living under for the last 20-some years. That is the only thing that's controlling the amount of tax that we can collect. 2.5, we have not had a 2.5 override. Twice has been voted on, and twice has been rejected by the residents. CPA has been voted on twice and has been rejected twice. And now, to get excess tax revenue, we are using a roundabout way by state legislators to allow the cities and towns to impose a $200 per resident taxpayer collection of their fees or taxes, whatever you want to call it. The taxes would not pass in this town if it was requested. And this is the reason why, even last night, I was at the selectmen's meeting, and one of the agenda items on the warrant articles for yesterday was the collection or reversal of the actions. Hang on a second. Let me just. There we go. We have to go all the way to the back. As a matter of fact, I submitted 4 articles that the residents and I have requested the town meeting to consider. Reverse the imposition of the so-called trash fee, to see if the town will vote to reverse the actions taken to authorize the so-called trash fee. The means and methods used to identify and authorize this trash tax was introduced without the legislative body consultation or approval. The so-called trash contract shortfall can be supported by an appropriation of $1.3 million from the free cash actual tax receipts. The issue here is that it's not the $200. I don't think anybody cares about the $200, because we're going to get a tax increase of over $200 in December. That's inevitable. However, is the way it was done, the way it was circumvented over the over and above the current process of our taxing of ourselves. And this is a government of the people and for the people. So this is one good reason that the town charter is going to be reviewed. And one of the things that should be addressed is, how do we implement tax increases in this town? And we have to get ourselves away from the legislative actions that are being connived in Boston, because all they want to do is permit the cities and towns to collect over and above the 2.5, because that has been very concise and very important to the residents, controlling the budgets. So I had I had prepared a solution to what the um, the well, Ben, can you just put on the defund our bloated town management to fund trash tax costs and save taxes. No new taxes, please. I don't think people realize that this is a tax, except that it's done in such a underhanded way with permission that was really not requested by the town meeting or the town voters. So this, I have this in the back of my truck on a large sign, and I even handed it out at the last special town meeting because we had a defund the management, and the management itself in this town is almost $4 million, and that's only the directors and above. $4 million. And these guys and women could not devise a way around it except to impose a new tax. So, that's how it is, that's how it's going to be, and I hope the town meeting has an opportunity to discuss this, because my reverse the imposition of the so-called trash fee warrant article is very simple. The last one that was submitted was more convoluted and legalese. I did not want to get into the legal stuff, because every time I propose a warrant article, the legal counsel of this town always says I'm wrong. So let's make it simple and ask the question of the town meeting. And the Board of Selectmen last night did not like my proposal, did not like my warrant article. It was a 3-2 vote, both in favor and against. And finally, they went through against my warrant article. But all I want to do is bring it to town meeting and let them decide. If the town meeting decides that this should be approved, then the only other amendment that can be done is a general election of the process, referendum vote, basically. So I don't know if that'll ever go that far, but it's available. So management can be defunded. They tried defunding the police. This may be an opportunity to defund the town management, because the town management has overgrown its britches. So the next item that I would like to bring up is that we do finally have an article on the town meeting agenda, article number 7, which is the, let me just read it real quickly, establishment of citizens committee. And this is so badly worded, I'm telling you, it's all convoluted in the legalese. Chapter 294, Acts of 1930, and Chapter 13, Acts of 1949, to see if the town will vote to establish a committee with a minimum of 7 town meeting members to evaluate, assess, recommend, and how does this committee going to be established? I hope it's done well, because the town moderator is appointing this committee, and this committee should really look into how this town is being run. and whether it is um, a well-run town or should it be a city? City government, city established uh, city council, mayor. If there's a mayor elected, then you can get rid of the bum after 2 to 4 years, like it's been done in Beverly, Salem, and other communities. The city council is the board of selectmen, and they make the decisions without going to a town meeting legislative body, because our town meeting legislative body does not function as such. Our system doesn't know how much power they have if they exercise it. So the town manager, through the support of the Board of Selectmen, does whatever he thinks is good for his position and how it is orchestrated to provide the services in this town. If we go to a city government, you don't like what the mayor does, you vote the guy out or the woman out. And then that forces a administrative change in town hall or the city hall. And many people call this White House of ours on Sylvan Street as the city hall. We are not a city according to the legislative and administrative side. We are a town, and everybody thinks that we're a small town. We're no longer a small town. We are a city in disguise. So maybe it's time to admit to the fact that, hey, we're no longer a city, no longer a town. So there were several items that were discussed last night, and they were mostly administrative. But I just like to go through a couple of them for my own edification and my own pronouncement. Handheld electronic vote tabulation for town meeting. This is a proposal that I've investigated, and it had some significant support from the Board of Selectmen, because we as a town have encountered many instances, and I, as being a town meeting member for many, many years, have always questioned the hearing capacity of the town moderator of voice votes. And every time there was a question on the voice vote, it was always overturned. Nobody wants to have a stand-up vote or a roll call vote, because that would expose their positions of how they voted. Our town budget can be approved in 10 minutes of the town meeting. The first 10 minutes of the town meeting, after the formalities and ceremonial, flag allegiance and the high school band marching or whatever, then it takes about 10 minutes for the budget of $144 million to be approved, to be spent. And then the Board of Selectmen, in November or December of the year, when they set the tax rate at the time, because that is all based on the amount of dollars that have been spent for the budget. They claim to be, I'm absolving myself because the town meeting voted to spend all that money. Well, you as the Board of Selectmen are also responsible for spending that money. You have not been frugal enough or directed the town manager to be frugal enough to save some for a rainy day. They are creating all kinds of accounts. Yes, money is saved and retained, but the budget itself, which makes up a bulk of the costs associated with the running of this town, has not been zero based. Now, I don't know if you know what a zero based budget is, but it's a budget built from the bottom up so you know what you're asking for. Our budgets are basically, most of the costs are for personnel. I mean, we have 750 people working for this town, whether it's in the schools, DPW. Town Hall has a lot of money invested in the management side, and those budgets are based on the salary increases that they will allow for the year and how that money is going to be spent. So those are some of the major ones. One of the questions that I raised, and boy, they didn't like that, is Article 40, which was to expand and improve the pilot or payment in lieu of taxes from Beverly Airport. Now, we have been struggling to resolve the issues of the noise and the emissions, and as a matter of fact, today, excuse me, as a matter of fact, today, I reported a jet flight right over the Glendale Drive, Route 1, Route 95 passage that comes into the Beverly Airport. And it sounded like a big jet coming through. It's quick, but it still distorts the environment for us. So, this program is something that was devised in the past, and it's going the other way. It's our payment to Beverly for us being part of the airport, which impacts the life and quality of life of the residents of Danvers. Now, there has been a lot of discussion on that. I left this thing to the legislative body that Sally Kearns and Joan Lovely have been working on. All I was asking for is let's reinforce this process by having a letter sent that we are still interested in what's going on. And they said that they sent a letter 6 or 9 months ago, and it didn't do any good. Everything is going into the circular basket at the State House, and if it goes into committee, it never comes back out. So, the next one is related again to Beverly Airport. And this one is request an environmental impact report for Beverly Airport impact on Danvers. Our residents have been complaining in regards to many of the facets of the operation at the Beverly Airport, and those facets at the airport have an impact on our quality of life. As a matter of fact, of noise. This is by training planes, master plan expansion, lengthening of the runways, the planning, zoning, and conservation of additions located on the west side of the airport, air emissions, jet and single-engine plane emissions, leaded fuel emissions for the entire region, impact of hangar construction, uh, proximity of the hangars onto the west side of the airport and Old Burley Street. Water drainage issues have been happening. PFAS, which is a contaminant in the water supply, and this was supposedly introduced at the airport during a demonstration of foam used to put out fires, because that's what they wanted to show, how if there is a fire on a plane, that can be used to extinguish that. Lengthening of the runway, which is proposed in the master plan, has been an issue from day one in 2019. The proposal in the master plan is such an impact that people do not want that expansion of the runways, because all that is going to do is bring larger, heavier, and noisier jet planes, and we will become a jet port of the North Shore. Okay. That covers those three. And as I already explained, the other ones were handheld electronic vote tabulation for the town meeting, and I think that's self-explanatory, and that will help alleviate the issues that we have had with the listening process of the town moderator of how the votes really go. If she had the vote tabulators at the last special town meeting, it would have been a very simple resolution. But no, they wanted to continue that. And now we're looking into maybe getting these things done. There's the law that has been proposed for the last 3 years, recall petition. A recall petition does not exist in this town because there's no way to expel some elected official if he has a criminal infraction on his record, or he is arrested and put in jail, and he does not have to resign if he doesn't want to. So there's a method to this madness, and this has been proposed for the last 3 years. And the thing is that this bylaw has not been accepted, and even the last night's current Board of Selectmen decision was to give it unfavorable recommendation. So we'll see. That will go to town meeting. There is a very good chance that it can be heard at the meeting. It'll extend it because even last night we had maybe 10 articles, and it went on till 10 o'clock at night. I was surprised that the Board of Selectmen stayed up so late, because usually they go to bed at 8:30 or 8 o'clock. So let's go on. And what we have coming is we have additional warrant articles. Like I said, there's 43 altogether. So basically we have another 30-plus articles that are recommendations by the town manager to spend part or almost all of the free cash, $12.2 million. And one of the amendments or warrant articles is to return to have the trash tax reversed and fund that with $1.3 million of the free cash that has been laying around for a year now. And the thing is, why on earth did a management team request to ask for a $200 per residence fee or tax when they had $12.2 million in reserve already? The only reason I can think of is to get more money so they can spend it on special projects. And special projects are evident all around us. So let's keep tabs on what's going on. I have decided that I'm going to keep the expenses under control, and I don't have any problem going to town meeting and defending the articles that I've prepared. And there are other individuals, recall petition, preservation commission, are going in with their bylaws and changes to our quality of life because they believe that these things need to be done and they need to be addressed now. And the same thing with my citizens petition. Now, citizens petition has been very finicky because all it takes is 10 signatures from voting public. And the thing is that the town government does not like to have people interfere in their methods and how they are being governed. So let's continue on keeping track. What I'm waiting for, and I will report that on next show, is there's a tabulation of where the money goes for each and every one of these articles. And last year's free cash articles were worth almost $6 million. Yeah, $5.987 million. So every year we have been able to recoup from the budget $6 to $8 million. We need to do that again. So my next show will be on April 11th, and it'll be a forum for the Board of Selectmen candidates. Whoever shows up will appear on the show, and I have no indication that all of them will show up, but the show must go on. And we will present that next Thursday, April 11th at 5 p.m. Good night, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're watching this. Thank you for being here.